Y'all ready? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. What? This is the testament of everything I penned is right. The reason for every word, the passion within what I write. The visual of the spiritual precision behind the mic. This insight is what gives these verses life. Verses life. Verses. Welcome to Verses. This is a in-depth walkthrough of some of my most meaningful pieces of work. The work that I will be explaining and going through the breakdown of what was the inspiration, what did all of this derive from, and what I actually went through while putting these pieces of work together. I've gotten some positive feedback from some of these works, and I thought it would be good to just really give a good in-depth breakdown just for you. All right, so we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the song Even It Out. We're going to break down verse 1, bit by bit. Let me get a sip of tea. I love tea. I have my notes over here, so if you see me looking down, excuse me. I'm just trying to get my notes together. Even It Out is a song that was in the making for some time. My body of work entitled Verses, just like the name of this series, in 2017. But I actually began writing Even It Out, let's say about 2010. It took a while. Every time I would put it together, it just wouldn't seem right. Or the track just wasn't really working with it. It wasn't marrying with the track well. And when it comes down to hip hop, you want everything to be cohesive. Every cymbal sound, every bass line, everything. You want it all to be cohesive. So I would constantly just put it to the side. I'm like, this is not working. This is probably a piece that I'll never do, or I'll never be able to record this properly. But during the summer of 2017, I went into some very heavy meditation about self, because during the entire year of 2016, I dealt with self in a very ugly fashion. But it was worth it. We can talk about that in another video. So we begin with verse 1 for Even It Out. It reads as such. I know it's really hard out here. In the valley it is written, I should have no fear. Crawling out the cracks, covered with dust and mold. An empty shell wrapped in sin, trying to save my soul. I'll stop right there. Facing the reality that life in itself, or just dealing with day-to-day life, its ups and downs, situations, positions that you find yourself in, is extremely hard. Some can't even cope. You have those who will end their lives because of things that are going on in their lives. You also have those who will use other mechanisms or vices just to deal. This is where you get addiction and really bad habits that develop. It's a coping mechanism. So in this first line, I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that truth, that it's really hard out here. You know, that everyone has their own degree of what is difficult, what can be worked through. Your life is not someone else's life. As much as you may relate or empathize or even be sensitive to the issues they may face should they share it with you. It's still not your life, it's theirs. And it's hard. So I acknowledge that truth in the first line. In the valley it is written, I should have no fear. My foundation through spirituality began in Christianity. Now, time has changed. I've studied and learned many things. My realization and truth of what spirituality is has changed greatly, but that's something else. A valley, the representation of a valley in the Christian Bible shows a passage. It demonstrates a walk that we all must take one step at a time. And that valley may seem destitute. It may seem impossible. It may even seem hopeless. But it is written that we should have no fear. That in itself is not an easy thing, but with a certain amount of faith, it is very possible. I see it every day. I see it in those around me. I see it within myself sometimes. But I'm just being real. It's not all smiles and giggles with me. But it is written that we should have no fear. So I acknowledge that basis in which I derive from. Going on to the next line, crawling out the cracks, covered with dust and mold. There is a point in life where you decide to do something different. Now, whether or not that different path or different direction you wish to take will be beneficial to you, you may assume you know, but you really don't know. You don't know the outcome. And when you make that decision to leave one state of being and enter into another, it's a transition. So to represent that transition, I stayed an empty shell wrapped in sin, trying to save my soul. That whole entire transition of wanting to be in another place, not physically in another place, but spiritually in another place. I crawl from those cracks with the filth, with the bacteria, with all of these things, the dust and the mold on me. Understanding that I was still an empty shell. I was never whole. I was impartial. I had a lot of emptiness. There were things that needed to be fulfilled in my life spiritually that could manifest themselves physically as well. But I had to make that decision. So I crawled. Didn't walk, didn't run. I crawled out of those cracks, covered in dust and mold, an empty shell wrapped in sin, trying to save my soul. On to the next line. I played a role of somebody, trife and misguided. That's self-explanatory. I was down bad. All the way bad. It is a role that I embarked on that I was never really comfortable with. And I acknowledge that truth as well by stating that it was trife and misguided. Left on the shelf for someone else to come by it. I disregarded myself to the point where I left it up to another individual to add value to me. Sound familiar? You see so many people do the same thing every day. With the development of social media and this internet rage, you have people that will do some of the most extreme things, some of the most hypocritical things, some of the most just demeaning things to themselves or to other people. Film it, have it there for everyone to see, or state certain things that will cause a ruckus, so to speak. They love controversy. They live and breathe in it. But just to have someone hit the like button or compel someone to want to share it with someone else, left on the shelf for someone else to come and buy it. No value to themselves whatsoever. The next line states, they roll it, I light it. They touch it, I like it. I witness the realest of truths, and I hide it. Once again, self-explanatory. They roll it, I light it. Whatever was being rolled up, I was, lighting it, rolling with it, and all of that. Now, I want to make this clear that when I speak of rolling and lighted, I am referring to drug use, but not the stuff from the earth. Not the stuff from the earth. They touch it, I like it, referring to just the bad behaviors that I had. Both, on the sexual nature and also of what I would say and speak and what was said and spoken to me. I liked it. I witnessed the realest of truths and I hide it. See, it didn't matter that I was completely engulfed in all of that. It really didn't register to me at the time that making, what you're seeing right now or what you're feeling, this small amount of being uncomfortable or not really enjoying what you say you enjoy. I didn't realize at that point in time that was the truth. It was the truth. And that truth is what I hid. Not from others, but from myself. You see, all of this is therapy for me or anyone else who's ever dealt with similar issues. But I put it in the form of art, and that's what I love. On to the next line. Fighting more than demons from the past. See the snakes in the grass, so I'm taking off the mask. In this statement, I'm referring to the absolute conviction of dealing with your past, your downfalls, your ugliness of being human. I told you earlier on that in 2016, I dealt with self. I dealt with the human part of me. One of the most difficult things that I have ever done. And for a solid year, it was revelation after revelation after revelation. To know yourself, it's a remarkable thing, but it's not that easy. You have to be dedicated to want that knowledge. So I'm fighting at this point in time in this song. I'm fighting more than demons from the past. It is the current. It is the actions that I had done within a relatively closer period of time. It's like walking and reflecting on each step after you take each step. Every single step, looking at the step previous to that. Knowing how recently you just took that step. And realizing you didn't want to take that step. That was something that you were compelled to do. That was something that is just basically in your nature. It is you. It is your human self, which I promise you, you will not like when you really see it. See the snakes in the grass, so I'm taking off the mask. Having that vision, having that ability to see those steps, to see what my now was, I realized that enough with the charade. Enough with the, okay, this is me, this is how I'm going to be. No, enough with all of that. It's time to take off the mask. Took it off. And saw far more than I thought I would ever see. Continuing on. Quintessential, that I quench my thirst. From being more than a lyricist they never heard. It's pretty basic, to the point. But for me at this particular point in time, it was a hunger that was beyond any hunger I had ever felt before. I wanted and needed so desperately, to quench a thirst for lyricism, for hip-hop, to satisfy an art, to satisfy a need that was a part of me. Knowing that you had some people who may have heard me, or that I came up with and knew a few things, may have heard some of my stuff, my work, further in the past, in the beginning, where I was trying to really figure out, who I was, what I was going to do, how I wanted to sound, all of that different stuff. And when hip hop was introduced to me, I was very, very young, but I had already had a love for words. I had a love for poetry. It was just in me. So to go into hip hop, it just seemed, okay, this is just another way that I can express the same words, the same poetry structures that I had already. And it was fun. It was fun. But I wanted it to have meaning. I didn't want it just to say, oh yeah, I can do that. No, I wanted it to mean something to someone else besides myself. I wanted to be able to touch, not just someone's memory to reflect on, oh yeah, she's reflecting on a portion of her life that I've gone through also. No, even though that's nice, in a sense, shows some form of connection, but I wanted to touch them deeper, beyond emotions, beyond just the thought of thinking. I wanted to touch spirits, but I knew that there was some part of me that had to be spiritually sound in order to do that. Trial by fire. On to the next line. Time to explore all the avenues that were given to me. Self-explanatory. It was time for me. Even though this began as a written work in 2010, it was not completed until 2017. It was time. And that time evolved and changed and matured me even further, both spiritually and holistically, in wisdom. So it needed to happen that way. And I appreciate that. But it was time for me. I knew it was. That urge, it is almost inexplainable. Anyone who is an artist, they understand this. Anyone who has had a innate gift, and when that passion comes on you to put it together, whatever it may be, it is compelling. It is beyond measure. And no matter what you do, you constantly come back to it. And that's what it was with this particular body of work. The next line: resuscitate my words. Won't you help me breathe? At that point, I knew that there was something much, much, much greater than me at work. And I knew that the words that were floating around, envision this. Words, at will, go, walk, though, just words floating around inside of your body. Words that have powerful meaning, words that can be put together or taken apart or broken down syllable by syllable to then again mean something else, to re-emphasize other words that then define other words with meaning that are not being used, that are not being said, that are not being written, that are not even being consciously thought of or respected. What's the saying? If you don't use it, you lose it, type of thing. So those words floating around within me then begin to die. They begin to settle. And with that, I began to feel the loss. I had to mourn and walk around pathetically wondering what's wrong with me. I don't feel right. What's happening? Not realizing that what was going on was that I was not being who I was supposed to be. I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. Walked through this realization and saw another truth. I needed my words resuscitated. They needed life again. They needed a breath from something much greater than me to get it going. And in doing so, those words that were settled are now floating and circulating again. And then they come out. They exude. They attach to other people, other spirits, to then again have meaning and recycle themselves. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to witness. Help me see. Sometimes I'm stuck where I don't want to be. Stuck in this battle of my spirit versus me. I got to even it out. Do you see the flesh, as they like to call it? But I prefer to use the term the human self. The human self. It has a uncanny way of compromising all other selves. And as you watch this series, you'll find that a lot of the information that I share with you is from study or just revelation. Even call it crazy, call it what you want. Even through visions, through meditation. It's just so many things. But as hard as it has been, and as trying as it has been, I love it. I appreciate it. And I would not be me without it. So I'm going to stop right there. That is verse 1 of Even It Out. Stay tuned for the next video. I'll be going over verse 2 of Even It Out. And, you know, enjoy. 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 That's what I really want you to do. Have that revelation, that understanding of you. I'll attach the words to the entire song and a link to the song in the description box below. Also all my contact information. And I look forward to this journey of verses. Thank you.